Good evening and welcome to the September 17th, 2024 Matthews County School Board Regular Monthly Meeting. I would like to also acknowledge that today is Constitution Day and that 237 years ago today, our U.S. Constitution was signed and adopted. We did have some citizens in the community who donated pocket-sized constitutions to our high school and middle school for the courses that are teaching about the Constitution. So we are very happy to have that involvement and to acknowledge this special day. Did you have anything else to add, Dr. Daniel?
I would add as well that our schools started their days or at some point during the day made some acknowledgments and provided a little information to the students on Constitution Day and did a little bit of the history of Constitution Day and the Constitution to kind of set the tone for the day.
Okay, great. Move to item 1.2, the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would all please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 1.3, roll call, please.
Here. Here.
I'm here, present.
Mr. Morgan. Mr. Dobson.
Here.
Ms. Diggs.
Here.
Mrs. Hodges.
Here.
Dr. Gibbs.
Present. Item 1.4, approval of the agenda, additions and deletions. May I have a motion?
I make a motion, we approve the agenda as listed.
I second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 1.5, the consent agenda. May I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the minutes of August 20th, 2024 regular monthly meeting, adopt school board budget meeting calendar for FY26, school budget development, and approve monthly claims as presented on the consent agenda.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Dobson?
All right. On the Matthews County School Board vendor payments, page 2, item 2. What was the instructional software that cost $10,332.25? Anybody know? All right, next question.
Hang on, Mr. Dobson. I just want to make sure that I'm clear. So on page 2, item 2, you're talking the vendor from CDW. So there were 3 items for instructional software that totaled $10,332.
That's it.
So, okay, so there are 3 different software items. I can pull those, we can pull those POs and get that information to you.
All right. Page 2, item 6. What was the Crisis Prevention Institute paid $6,196.15 for? Is that a class?
Yeah, so CPI is a training program. So unfortunately, when staff members have to physically restrain students, there's a training program. So there's a train the trainer module, and then there are materials associated with CPI. So our staff members go through that training process and then are certified in using very specific techniques to first de-escalate situations and then safely restrain students when necessary.
How long does it take for that course to be taught?
It's been a while since I've done it, but usually it's a 2 to 3 day training process. So we have a train the trainer module. So our trainers have to go get recertified as trainers, and then they come back with the materials purchased to provide training to our staff members.
So once we get somebody certified, they can teach that course?
Yes, but there's a recertification process that they have to go through, and I believe the CPI Institute upgraded or updated some of their protocols and techniques and procedures. So our trainers had to go back to get recertified to then recertify staff members within the division.
Okay. Page 5, item 8. What bus has been in an accident that cost $12,764.32 worth of damage? Went into the collision center.
What page was that, Bob?
Page 5, item 8.
Tell me that again, page 5, so,
Item 8.
5, item 8.
okay.
There's about 4 or 5 listed there under that total.
Okay, so what Ms. Lau is telling me is just, it's multiple repair items, it's not one specific bus, so it's multiple minor things with several of our buses, or it looks like vehicles as well.
All right, so dings and dents is what you're telling me?
And I think we go through a process over the summer of having buses painted, so where we've got scratches and things along those lines, those get painted and updated to make sure they look
All right.
presentable.
And while we're on that subject, do we teach defensive driving course? Is there a course that the drivers can go through when they do have a problem?
Are you referring to our students taking a defensive driver course, or
No,
our
I'm
bus
talking about
drivers?
the bus drivers.
If they are in an accident afterwards, or
Yes.
just as a general part?
If they're in an accident.
I can't say that I know the protocols, should they have an accident, what what we go through.
Don't you think we should look into that and have that?
I can talk to Mr. Royals and see what is in place.
Okay, I'm done.
Okay, well, let me back up. So, my crack research team has informed me that the CDW cost is for Lightspeed software. What Lightspeed is, it's a filtering mechanism that we subscribe to that's on all of our devices in the network that highlights, it has an algorithm that highlights threatening language or concerning language that anyone may type or search on school devices or school accounts. And so that allows us we'll get highlights. I would say the vast majority of those are kind of false positives, but every once in a while what we receive are concerning messages. Lightspeed has humans on the other side of that software that will review screenshots or the text of what is input, and so they will reach out to us as it goes through their levels of review. So it's not just a software, it's also a subscription for people reviewing and making decisions on anything that a student might type in that is concerning. So,
All right, that's programs we supply to people that watch that?
so we subscribe to that service. So there's an algorithm within the software that then scrubs basically anything that students on a Matthews account or a Matthews device will input. And so if it then, on their end, there's a human who then looks at the results of that algorithm, that software, and then if it kind of concerns them, they will notify us. But they have protocols as to when they notify us.
All right.
What I get a lot of is if there's a research project, so recently, if there was a research project in an English class and students are researching school shootings, which is kind of a relevant theme these days, we'll get a bunch of highlights that kids are searching about school shootings, which is concerning if kids are trying to do research to do ill harm. But it's a false positive if students are doing a research project towards that.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Any further discussion?
I would just like to make a comment. This is the first time we've done a consent agenda, and the intent of it was to take motions and collapse them to try to save time down the road. So just like, for those of you like, what's going on? That's the reason we're doing it, and this is the first time we're doing it. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 1.6, Matthews County Board Governance Norms and Protocols, and I will go ahead and read as we highlight a couple of these every month. This month, discussion is the assignment of committee members. Committee members are assigned on a volunteer basis, and committee reporting expectations. Board members will report on committee work when applicable. And we do not have separate committees at this time on this board. However, that may be a feature in the future, specifically on policy and finance. Item 2.1, I'd like to welcome our new student representative, our liaison, Ms. Suki Zhang. And Ms. Zhang, when you're ready, please provide your report.
Hello. Okay. We're going to start off with some updates from the Matthews Elementary School. We had a great start to the school year. Teachers and students are working hard to establish and learn routines. Our new reading series, Benchmark Advance, spent several weeks focusing on and reinforcing procedures and routines. We know this has been time well spent because our students are doing well. On September 10th, we had a Boohoo Yahoo breakfast where parents of pre-K and parents of kindergarten could come eat with our students. We completed our STAR testing in both reading and math, and now we are working on VALLSS testing for 1st through 3rd grade. Kindergarten will begin VKRP testing starting next week, and they will complete VALLSS testing later in October. Our 4th grade students put together a fabulous video on September 11th to recognize and celebrate our first responders. They appreciated Sheriff April Edwards and her stuffed dog Karma dropping by to take a photo with the 4th graders. Thank you, Ms. Ray. We're sending love, encouragement, and well wishes to them as they start this school year. Here's some updates for Thomas Hunter Middle School. Earlier today, the middle school had a Constitution Day and fundraiser assemblies. For this week, we have a couple more events. Tomorrow, September 18th, we are welcoming our new students in the admin meeting at 9:30. Teachers on Friday, September 20th, bring your back-to-school cups in for a tasty treat. Looking forward to the rest of the month, we have a few plans. On September 23rd, YMCA will join after-school activities at Matthews Elementary School. On the same day, STAR assessment reports will go home. On September 25th at 8:15 to 9:15 in the auditorium, parents will join Mrs. Simpson for coffee hour. Later that day, September 25th at 3 o'clock, there is an FCCLA meeting. On September 26th, there is a Bible Club meeting at 3. Next Friday is National Coffee Day. There will be an opportunity for students to take part in lunch on the lawn if they have perfect attendance next week. In just under 3 weeks is Picture Day on October 7th. Don't forget to dress nice and smile big. Thank you, Ms. Simpson, for your update. And finally, here are some comments from the high school from Dr. Grieve. We've had a great start to the school year at Matthews High School. There was a smooth transition with the addition of the 8th graders, and it's been great to have a football team again. We're excited that we had enough players interested that we could field a team. This is a time of year when students select class officers and sign up for clubs. Class officers were elected last week, and our first activity day is scheduled for Friday, September 27th. On Monday, which was yesterday, seniors met with Byron Thorne from Jostens to place orders for things like class rings and go over important dates pertaining to seniors for the upcoming school year. Fall sports pictures for underclassmen will be held Tuesday, September 24th, and this Friday, September 20th, will be fall sports pictures. We have many upcoming visits from colleges and universities during the next month, including Longwood on September 26th, UVA on October 10th, JMU on October 18th, and Mary Baldwin on October 21st. We're also very excited about our homecoming football game on October 11th. We'll start with a pep rally at the end of the school day, followed by the homecoming parade, and at the end of the day with the football game and the homecoming dance. It's a really fun day for students. Last but not least, congratulations to MHS Beta Club. They received a banner for being recognized as National Beta Club Distinction for the 2023 through 2024 school year. Thank you, Dr. Grieve. That concludes all 3 schools.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We look forward to working with you. All right, we have a recognition for item 3.1, and that is for the 2024 VSBA Media Honor Roll for Mr. Charlie Koenig, editor, the Gloucester Matthews Gazette Journal. If you would please come up, Charlie.
Do we have someone to take a picture?
Yeah.
Do we have someone to take a picture?
I don't think we have anyone to take a picture.
On behalf of the school board, we want to thank you for all the wonderful work you do with us and inviting us up and staying in touch. Moving on to item 4, we have a presentation from Mr. Wesley Robbins, the CTE carpentry teacher from Matthews High School. Welcome.
Hello, good evening, members of the school board. My name is Wesley Robbins. I am your assistant position as the carpentry teacher at Matthews High School. And behind you in the screen beside you, I'm going to go over tonight a tiny home project that we've been forming at the school and are here to present to you. All right, we'll skip to slide 1. All right, what you're seeing on the screen visually is an exact representation of the tiny home that we hope to build. The one pictured in the screen is 4 feet shorter than the one we're going to build, but visually it will be the same, or at least is what we intend. The tiny house that we will build will measure 8 feet wide, 24 feet long, and will serve as a compact yet functional living space, showcasing the potential of small, eco-friendly living. The accommodations inside of the home will include standard kitchen cabinets, countertops. It will be fully outfitted with appliances such as a stove, a refrigerator, sink, washer, dryer. It will be ventilated such as a home is. The bathroom shower is the reason that we increased it by 4 feet from the original design that you see on the screen to accommodate a 42-inch shower. We will have a bathroom sink and vanity, household quality, exhaust venting in the bathroom, and it will utilize a tankless hot water run from propane. The interior design is an open floor plan that can be modified by the final user to accommodate whatever needs they may have with the home. It will feature a waterproof vinyl plank floor. Wall covering will be a V-groove, tongue groove paneling that we will make ourselves in-house from rough cut lumber that we'll procure. Everything will be painted and finished for delivery. The lighting we have planned will all be LED fixtures throughout to try to save energy where possible. The outside, we've gone over the dimensions. The total square footage will be 192 square feet. It will be built on a trailer that is special made for tiny homes. So the trailer itself acts as the subfloor. It has pockets made in for insulation, plumbing, wiring. This is something that will be manufactured for us by design, and we will have very little modification will be needed to build a home on top. It basically is made to take the design that we have. The siding will be a composite LP Smart side, so it won't be vinyl And so if the house is routinely transported, you won't run the risk of the siding blowing off, going down the road, or just having, if, we don't know the final user, so we're trying to make it sort of as bulletproof on the outside as we can, assuming that it will be transported regularly. All the windows will be standard low E glass, high energy efficient windows. The windows themselves will be double hung, casements in the shed dormers and the loft. It will have fiberglass doors to save weight, foam core for insulation. And it will either use rock wool insulation and some fiberglass bat insulation. All right, let's go back. I skipped one on that slide. All right, let's go over the benefits that I foresee that this project will bring to our students. It certainly has practical skill development. There'll be hands-on experience in a variety of trade skills, including carpentry, electrical, plumbing, and interior design. Interdisciplinary skills, integrating principles from mathematics, science, engineering, and environmental studies. We will make every attempt to make this house as green as possible, utilizing what building materials are seen in the industry today. Career preparation, job readiness. We hope that this project will provide students an industry-relevant skill and experiences leading to future employment opportunities in construction, architecture, interior design, environmental science. Additionally, working on a project of this scale helps students develop essential soft skills such as teamwork, problem solving, and project management. I want to touch on this. We have several students now that have expressed interest in moving on later in their career to construction engineering, construction management. And it's hard for them to dabble their feet on a small scale project. This will give them an opportunity to be involved in the process of planning, something that has much more detail, that the consequences of poor planning early on will result later on, and they can see where, you know, every detail matters. So for them to dabble their feet early on in life, if this is a career that they're considering, we certainly believe that this is a great project for those that plan to move on in the field of construction. Community engagement and recognition. By partnering with local businesses and showcasing the tiny home at community events, we can highlight the talents of our young students. This visibility can attract support and resources for our programs at the high school, enhancing educational opportunities we can provide to our students. A carpentry program or any CTE program has to run on community support. For it to run at a high level and provide all of the opportunities to the students that it can provide, we do need support from the community to be able to engage in these actions that offer a large scope of work and learning to the students. You know, we definitely need support from our local community. And we need to show them results of that support, and that's what this project would partly be about. All right, task competencies. For those that don't know, we are tasked by the state with a list of competencies to every level of our carpentry class. Carpentry 1, Carpentry 2, and Carpentry 3. Carpentry 3 is not listed. I apologize for that. I didn't submit that when we did this thing. Carpentry 1, you can see on the screen the amount of competencies listed. Carpentry 1, Carpentry 2. Carpentry 3, it would cover 87 of the 97 competencies. If you're wondering what it is not covering, it would be industrial trades. So commercial concrete forms, rigging, cranes, things that we just would not be able to touch on or would not cover, that we have to find a different way to expose the students on that. But it covers a large majority of the things that we're tasked by the state to expose the children and also try to make them proficient at some level. Partnerships in place. I have secured with local contractors commitments for some of the tasks that I personally don't feel comfortable that we should take on with the students, as in this tiny home will have a true standing seam metal roof. We have a local roofing company that has agreed to come on site and provide all materials and labor and installation of the standing seam metal roof. So they're gonna come out and make us a custom standing seam metal roof and install it for us. They'll do that during school hours so the children can observe and see what takes place. The lumber, we've been offered wholesale pricing, same as any large contractor would be by a local lumber distributor. Same with the siding. Basically, all our materials have been offered to us almost at wholesale cost by our suppliers. We have a local electrical company that will guide us in the wiring of the home and will do the installation of the portions that are appropriate for a licensed electrician to install. So they will come by, evaluate, guide us to what that we feel that we can do with the students, things that are not appropriate for inexperienced people to do in electrical. They'll come in and complete that installation for us. Same with the plumbing. We have a plumbing company, local contractor that has committed to come in and guide us, advise us on the plumbing, and make any connections or plumbing that needs to be done by a licensed professional. We've recently, Stewart's Flooring here in Matthews has recently, this week, committed to do the installation of all of the tile and flooring and tile shower in our bathroom. So they have on board for materials and labor for that as well. So we've been able to secure quite a bit of support in a short period of time. So we hope that we can certainly continue that. This is giving you a list. There are many, even beyond the list that you see, programs all over the country that are participating in tiny homes. I know Albemarle County does one a year here in Virginia, and these lists of links that we have above would take you to show you how their programs are working and how they're marketing them to their communities. Cost. Our upfront cost on our portion was of the part that hasn't been donated or committed by local contractors and suppliers will be approximately $40,000. The potential sale price based on comps of dealers that we've spoken to, made contact with, other schools that I've talked to, we estimate, again, through comparable builds, that the sale price in the end will be between $80,000 and $90,000. So our goal on this first home, by seeking donations and partnerships with local businesses, is that through the sale of the home, it would create a reoccurring fund that we could continue the program year after year, that it would become self-sustaining, that we wouldn't have to go through the continual process of fundraising. That's our ultimate goal, is to make this a self-sustaining program. Okay, I think we've run to the end of our slides, and I'd like to field any questions at this time that you may have about the program, other things that we're doing. Yes, ma'am. Oh, yeah, hand up.
First of all, thank you for first year taking this on. This is exciting. And welcome to Matthews Schools. The foundation, does it stay on that foundation forever, or does it, when it gets to where it's going, gets a permanent foundation that it's then placed on?
No, the foundation, the chassis
Yes.
that it's built upon, actually acts as the subfloor of the home. So
Right, you said that, right.
It will forever be on that chassis.
It will always be on that?
It will forever
Okay.
be on that chassis.
Okay. My next question is, talking about tiny homes, they've gotten certainly a lot of attention. Is there a certain population, elderly, disabled, that seem to find that it's that's what they're looking for? Or is it kind of across the spectrum?
My research does not point that it's across the spectrum. It seems to be a younger crowd because of the affordability,
Okay.
because of the way it hooks to power, the way it hooks to water. They avoid a lot of permitting if it's on a site. Virginia, the building code does have some accommodations in Virginia for tiny homes, so the regulation on them, there are some codes that have to deal with tiny homes, this will be built to code, but it's far less than a standard single-family built-in-place home. So I find in my research that it's mostly younger couples. It's sort of a first home, a starter home, or they're being heavily used by facilities such as campgrounds as permanent sites. That's certainly a large market for the tiny homes. And they can be added to a piece of property. People that have a large enough piece of property, maybe parents, families would purchase them and place them on a piece of property as a starter home for their children. We see that that's a fairly large trend.
So how is the resale of them then? I'm just curious.
Well, I don't know that they have been, their rise has been recent enough that I don't know that I haven't found a lot of data on resale. It's certainly a depreciating asset, no matter which way you look at it. I would think that the quality of its construction initially would have a lot to do with how that depreciation transpires over the years. I mean, it's a pretty wide, now that is a wide range if you want to do some research on it. The resale of a used one is very, it's hard to pin down, but it seems to have a lot to do with the initial quality of the construction.
Thank you. This has been very helpful, and I look forward to seeing the finished product.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I'm glad to see something finally come out that's worthwhile and will definitely help the students learn. I have a couple questions for you.
Yes, sir.
The plumbing, the electricity, the HVAC, is any of the counties around us have classes in that?
The community colleges, I'm not familiar with anywhere but Gloucester. I know that our local community college offer.
All right, so none of the high schools in Lancaster, Middlesex, Gloucester?
I don't have knowledge of it, no,
Okay.
sir.
It would be great if they did, because we could do some exchanging.
I agree.
I'm going to re-innovate on something here again because of this. We need to look at maybe 4 counties in this area going together and putting an apprentice school together. And that way you can have all this. I think this is a wonderful idea. This is an opportunity that other people are going to look at. They may even want to get involved. And if we can start an apprenticeship school with 4 counties, you're cutting the pie up into 4 pieces. And it would do wonderful for the kids in this area. I think it's a terrific idea. The only down thing I have to ask you is, what are you going to do if you build it and don't sell it?
Well, that's the nature of any time you take
I know you take a risk.
you take a risk on things like this.
But I think you will.
Yeah, I think I will. I don't think that's, fortunately on the first one, it will sell. Fortunately on the first one, the safest way is to take the time to try to secure support through our community and giving, so we are not in a pressured situation to move it on. And we are not planning on trying to liquidate it quickly, because we plan to use it to highlight the program and market throughout the community what we're doing here in Matthews. That was our goal in the beginning, was that if we didn't start one right away, we have many other things which I'll touch on when we sort of get to the end that we are working on. So we're not without, other program goals, but we would like to be able to use the tiny home initially to market ourselves and our programs here in Matthews to the public.
Just to let everybody know, there is a show on television called Tiny Homes. And they do sell these things. A lot of people buy them because of downsizing, and a lot of them buy them because they're on the green side. So I think it's a wonderful idea, and I hope we can do it. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
May I ask, how many students will be participating in this project this year?
Well, I anticipate that on some level, all of our students. So I would say all 43 of our students will take part in this project on some level. Certainly, this is geared more for the Carpentry 2 and 3 children, but there are parts of it that every student will take part in.
That's super. Thank you so much.
Mr. Robbins, first of all, thank you for stepping up to the plate. I was there ahead of you, and I know what you're up against. As far as selling the tiny home,
Yes, sir.
there's a gentleman here in Matthews up at Cobb's Creek, Mr. Rick Andrews, builds tiny homes. I know someone who spoke with him recently regarding ordering one, and he, right now, is running a backlog. So I don't expect, if you put a good quality workmanship in it, build a good product, I don't expect it'll be difficult to move. You may not move it overnight, but I don't think it'll be hard to move based on what Mr. Andrews has said. The other couple of real quick questions I had for you. Obviously, the carpentry students will be working on this at whatever level is appropriate for them. First year wouldn't get quite as involved probably as second and third year. And they would be able to check off the majority of their competencies for carpentry class.
I believe so, yes, sir.
You'd only have a few others that you'd have to find a way to fill in, which was, I found to be always the case. I'm all for it. I think it's a great idea. I really do. I think it's a great idea. The more support you can get from the community, the better. And I think this is something that will get the community's attention, and I think they'll be in full support of it. I really do. So, once again, thank you for stepping up.
You're welcome, and thank you. All right, well, I think before I leave you, I think I'll just touch, we have some projects just to make you aware if you're not already so. We are actively involved in a dead rise boat recreation. A local community member has commissioned us to recreate a boat, a historic boat here in the county, locally built by Edward Diggs. It's been brought to our shop, and we're going to recreate that. We're sort of waiting on material that's coming from out of state, but that's moving forward. That is a done deal, and it's something we'll be moving forward with. We've also been able to make some community partners with some businesses. The job or business of millwright, which is things making trim, doors, windows. Many of the shops have gone out of business. Most of them gone out of business. So we've had some requests, thanks to the equipment we've been able to purchase over the last year. It's going to enable us to be able to expose the children to the trade of millwright, which is in carpentry. So we have a recent order for a large amount of handrails for an apartment complex that we're going to be starting in the next week for them. It's through Town Group Management out of Williamsburg. And I was just made aware today that we were shipped the entrance doors. They're historic to the buildings at Fishburne Military School. They are redoing their hardware on their doors for safety, so they've removed their original doors, their front doors to their school, and they have shipped them to us. They should be here tomorrow, so they want those restored and prepped for the new style magnetic hardware that they're going to do. So you'll be able to see that whole process. So children get some exposure to refinishing and repair of millwork. So that's our, right now we've got a lot going on, so we're not without, but the tiny home is certainly a goal that we're keeping our eye on, and I appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Robbins. We appreciate you. Thank you for all you do for our students.
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Give us an update on the Matthews State Assessment results for student achievement.
All right, thank you all, those of you watching from home. Before we start talking about state assessment results, I want to kind of couch, assessment results can get a little confusing as we talk about federal accountability measures, state accountability measures, how they weigh passing or don't weigh passing varies from state to federal accountability measures. So historically, what we've always talked about is state accountability and state accreditation measures. Those, that accreditation and accountability process at the state take in a lot of other variables that the federal accountability and assessment does not. So what we are just going to talk about today is just straight assessment results, and we're going to talk just kind of pass rates on that. So we're not going to talk growth measures, remediation, recovery, et cetera. Again, a little more detail about our annual pass rate data. So what we're talking about is following what the federal accountability requirements are. And again, the federal accountability requirements are different than state accountability requirements. So what the numbers we are going to look at tonight include all grade level and content area on our state assessment. So this is students who took an SOL test or were assessed using the VAP, or the Virginia Alternative Assessment Program, that was administered last year. So it's SOL results and VAP results. And it includes students who were enrolled during the testing window. So that seems like a no-brainer. But again, with state accountability, if a student enrolls late, they are not counted against us should they not pass that state assessment. So with federal accountability measures, hypothetically, a student could enroll the day before the test from a completely different state. And if they're enrolled with us, enrolled in that class, they're required to take that test. And so their scores count for us or against us. The state is a little bit different. So what we're looking at tonight is we're using the rules for the federal accountability, but we're not talking about accountability because we don't have all those measures. So we're looking at the rates using the rules for the accountability measures, if that makes sense. Okay. And it reflects the number of students who passed the assessment, but again, doesn't take into account students who didn't pass but showed growth. Again, in the state model, you get credit for students who show growth from year to year, but maybe still not pass. This is straight pass it, didn't pass it, because that's how the federal accountability system works. Okay, so looking at the division level, and we'll have 3 years worth of data. So we aggregate all the students for the division in reading, writing, math, science, and history. So again, what you're looking at is overall pass rate. So looking at the far right column for 23-24. So in reading across the division, 79% of our students passed the reading assessment. That's an increase of 8 percentage points over last year. In writing, seeing a 15% increase of pass rate over the previous year. Math seeing an increase, science seeing a slight increase, and seeing a slight dip in our history pass rates from last year. Going into the individual schools, so at the elementary school, again, overall reading pass rate being 76%, so you're seeing some growth in reading at the elementary school over the previous year. Looking at math growth as well, and again, a slight drop in history. So we're going back to kind of look at, you'll see a trend with some of our pass rate data looking at history performance, and then we'll also see some trends regarding our science performance. I think as we've had conversations looking at the time invested in reading and math, are we providing the ample amount of time required for history? And I think as we've gone through this strategic plan a little bit, I think we've highlighted some deficiencies in terms of curriculum resources provided for our teachers and staff as we've had turnover over the years. Looking at Thomas Hunter, again, gains in reading scores, gains in math, science, and again, we saw some gains in history. I'll also highlight the pass rates aren't where we want them to be. So part of our strategic plan and part of our initiatives this year working to get the pass rates where we want them to be. So the small victory is looking at, are we showing growth in areas, and where we're not showing the growth, going back and doing a dive to figure out what do we need to do differently to ensure that our students are achieving. Looking at Matthews High School, reading, writing, math, science, and history. The history number sort of jumps out at you. One of the things to take note of, history at the high school. So if I'll kind of dip back for a second. So understanding what subjects we test in and what students are required to take tests is a piece to keep in mind. So if not every student enrolled in a history class is taking an SOL test for that class. So for diploma requirements, you're only required to take pass one history SOL test for a high school credit class. So you may pass that test in 8th grade, which was at Thomas Hunter Middle School. So the students who are taking a history test at Matthews High School are students who may not have been successful in taking that test in 8th grade, or may not have had the opportunity to take that test in 8th grade, or maybe have transferred from out of state. So the percentage of students who are enrolled in taking that history test in high school is not a broad sampling of our students at Matthews High School. Again, 30% is not a good number for a pass rate, any way you slice it, but it's also understanding a bit of the backstory as to who is taking that test, because it is not everybody. So it is not a wide net that we are casting in terms of how all of our students are understanding history and able to demonstrate their skills within history. Part of what we're working on in terms of strategies for improvement, we've made a big push starting kind of in the winter and the spring of last year, implementing MTSS, or multi-tiered systems of supports. We've talked a bit about that at various board meetings. We've signed on to receive assistance from the Virginia Department of Education, so we have coaches from the DOE who work with William & Mary, and I believe VCU as part of their collaboration with the Department of Education. So we have ongoing meetings and trainings as we develop our skills with implementing MTSS, but MTSS is looking at, it's a process, so it basically is capturing student performance data and aligning that data with interventions and needs or enrichment for students who are demonstrating their achievement levels. So it's a very data-driven process to assign achievement or academic needs, but also behavioral needs for students. So they're kind of two arms to MTSS. Schools and the division are developing their comprehensive needs assessment and school support plans. So basically that's a school improvement plan that we would have called years ago. Different administrations come in at the DOE, so the name changes over time. But basically the schools and the division are developing school improvement plans that kind of will align with the strategic plan that we've been working on as a board. So we'll have a very top-down linear process where all of our goals and strategies are lining up across the division, and we'll build on each other from the elementary school to the middle school to the high school. So we're all singing from the same sheet of music, going forward, working on the same strategies, acknowledging the same successes, but also acknowledging some of the same deficiencies that we need to work on. Virginia Literacy Act is a big push coming from the state, and so that our literacy work, Ms. Zhang kind of highlighted with the elementary school, talking about our new textbook program. Part of that is based and rooted in the science of reading, and part of our commitment to the Virginia Literacy Act. So we are committed. We have been providing training to our teachers on what the VLA means, what the science of reading looks like, what those instructional strategies look like, and our textbook process to align with that. So we have new VLA core instructional materials in grades K through 5 that have been implemented. Kind of spot checking and hearing from folks who are going into those classrooms have been extremely impressed with our teachers' dedication and commitment to implementing the science of reading. The feedback that we've gotten has been positive. It's a heavy lift for our elementary teachers, but they have tackled that I guess courageously or mightily. Our math teachers worked in a regional consortium over the summer to look at curriculum development, to look at how do we need to tweak our curriculum to make sure our curriculum is aligned with what the tests are testing. We will be signing on to the Comprehensive Instructional Program, or CIP, not Capital Improvement Plan, but that's Comprehensive Instructional Program. CIP kind of has a couple different meetings depending on what meanings based on what meeting you're attending. But the CIP is kind of a pacing guide and resources that over 100 school divisions in Virginia have implemented and have seen quite a bit of success with. We are still working on and implementing the all-in tutoring program with some state money that was allocated about this time last year. So we still have after-school tutoring programs available to pay teachers to work with students beyond the regular school day. One of the major things that we worked on, both principals dove into as soon as they were in their new position, was looking at the master schedules to make sure we were using the instructional time to target reading and math in our academic areas. So we had a major overhaul of what the Thomas Hunter Middle School schedule looks like. Ms. Simpson worked quite a bit in her first weeks getting that schedule and getting students scheduled and electives aligned. Ms. Bray has done an amazing job of rethinking parts of the elementary schedule. The high school is working on double blocking students in math, so the students who most need support in mathematics have double blocked classes to make sure that they're getting the time on task that they need. They looked at who's teaching those classes, making decisions on we have the best teachers in front of the kids who need it most. So we had we had a lot of collaborative conversations about the master schedule and who we're putting in front of students. And the other piece is the best ability is availability. So it's making sure that students are in the classrooms. So we're continuing our efforts to make sure students are coming to school, making sure that we're reducing our chronic absenteeism rate. Our rates have gone down pretty significantly in terms of absenteeism and chronic absenteeism. So we are seeing successes there, and those two things are going to work hand in hand. The more students are in school receiving instruction, the better off they're going to be on those spring assessments. So to give you a little bit of information about accreditation and accountability, so the Virginia Department of Education is releasing the 24-25 state accreditation ratings. Those are performance levels and school quality indicators. So our 24-25 accreditation is based on last year's test scores. So we anticipate that coming out the end of September has been sort of their broad timeline. Of note, I have a superintendent's meeting on Thursday, so we'll receive some, I guess, training, if you will, or guidance on the new state accountability measures. It is a convoluted formula that includes weighted percentages for growth and percentages for pass and performance tasks and various other factors that will get cooked into accountability, so it is not as clean by any stretch as a pass, you passed or you didn't pass. So the State Board of Education is still working through that I believe they passed that formula in their August meeting. So the superintendents are getting, I guess, some training as to how that formula is going to be applied to our division. So we're going to bring our elementary data and work through that elementary data at this meeting. In 25-26, the implementation of the new accountability model using the school performance and support framework will be put into place. So that's coming in August of 25 to carry through in the 25-26 school year. So I tried to kind of condense some of this, just going through, like, not trying to get into the weeds on accreditation and accountability at this time, but really just to kind of talk about baseline. Here's where we are in terms of pass rates for content areas in our schools. Our STAR testing, which is part of MTSS, closed on Friday. We have classrooms that are still working to get some students who were absent during that testing. The company that oversees STAR testing kind of changed their norming. And so that has thrown us a bit of a curveball. So they've renormed to students post-COVID, which kind of inflates the percentiles, and it makes students post-COVID look like they're performing better than they were pre-COVID. So we are adjusting our cut scores to make sure that we're addressing the students who we feel like need to be addressed. So part of what we look at with that STAR testing is it determines who are we targeting for after-school remediation, after-school tutoring, or during the school intervention programs. So when we looked at the first cut scores, it said, oh, y'all are doing great, no worries, everything's fine. But when we compared it to some other data, we were like, wait a minute, we know that these students aren't fine. They're not at the level that we expect them to be. So we went in and did some digging and did some adjusting on those cut scores. Parent reports for the STAR fall screening go home, I believe, on the 23rd. So teachers are we've adjusted that. Teachers will be printing out those parent reports, and so those reports will be going out next week. And then afterwards, I'll present STAR data, planning on presenting STAR data at the October meeting. I didn't want to present kind of numbers that were going to change and give us all a false sense of security. We need to know who we're working for. So, questions on our accreditation, or our pass rates, rather?
Questions, comments, board?
I know you're not going to want to hear this. Fail rate wasn't included, but it stands out when you look at it. You're talking 23% to 70% fail rate in subjects. You probably got a 35% on the average. That's 1/3 of the students. Now,
the only thing, not to cut you off, I worry about averaging averages. We have an issue, don't get me wrong. We're, again, like I said early on, we're not where we need to be in terms of the percentage of our students or the number of our students who are passing. But I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Dobson.
All right. The 3 years that you show there, how many times have we changed the way we teach?
That would be hard to say. So we've had a number of so changing the way we teach is going to be very dependent on the teachers who's doing the instruction.
Because what I'm getting at, if you look at the first one, which was right after COVID, seems like the kids did pretty good. I mean, when you look, you can make figures say whatever you want, but looking at them, it seemed like right after COVID, the numbers were a lot better than what last year and this year was. From looking at it.
I'll have to go back and look to, I believe they're not called cut scores anymore, but what is considered passing was made more rigorous in 22-23. And so the tests have changed, and also what constitutes passing, how many questions you have to get right, that bar moved up.
Well,
so our pass rate goes down.
I like that.
So there's a ripple effect.
Yeah. Now, we got a serious problem with history. I mean, talk about Constitution Day. I think from judging by the scores, we need to teach the Constitution. And I'm a history buff. And I believe in one thing. You teach the good, the bad, and the ugly, but you teach it all. And all this History Month here and History Month there, rolled into one, do it by a timeline, and you teach it all together. And I think you come out a lot better than what we do now.
Well, a key part is going to be aligning up with what's on the test as well. So we can get into teaching everything, but what kids really need to focus in on, if we're talking about, if this is our currency for success, is passing that test, then our focus then becomes being a very test-driven instruction, which isn't great either.
I don't want to test a test.
Right. I don't think
want-
anybody does.
I want to get the kids the information they need to know.
Agreed.
And right now, half the people walking around this country don't know nothing about the Constitution. And I can go on and don't know a
Right.
lot about a lot of things.
Right.
And it's because of the way we've been teaching. All I want to do is see that the kids get what they need.
I agree with you on that. I think part of I think I made a statement the other day. It's difficult to serve two masters.
Right.
So right now, the master in front of us is a test, and what gets looked at is our students' performance on that test on a given day. So it's difficult to assess all the other things in terms of a broad understanding of history. Can you apply the Constitution in the real world? Can you see it in action? Can you live it? That's really hard to put into a multiple choice or a technology enhanced item on a test.
Well, one thing I like to look at is there's 9 gentlemen from this state that put that thing together. Because the Virginia Constitution, they spun it off into the United States Constitution. And the 9 men that worked on that bill were probably the smartest people that ever walked the face of this earth. Because that document still works today. Without a doubt, it works today. And we're the longest living group of people to be formed under one document in the world. And that's a credibility, and that's something that every one of these kids should learn. I don't know
Agreed,
any
but
other
it may
way to
not
say
be
it.
on the test.
I don't care if it is or not.
But it may not be on the test.
Yeah.
Right. Again, issues, massages are.
No, we're moving in the right direction.
We're moving in the right direction.
Yes.
We're not going,
We're-
I would like us to go faster,
Yes.
but we're making strides and doing things that I think will set us up for success. I anticipate these numbers looking very different next year.
I appreciate you pointing out that possibly in 2021, 22, that there were different, I'll use the word cut scores, than they are now. That helps me understand maybe what has happened in part. Clearly, high school science and history are very bothersome. But I'll say, as I've said before, unfortunately, we are all indoctrinated in SOLs are the holy grail of everything, and that's not in fact so. To the discussion you gentlemen just had, I just wish that we could find some other measurements so that we're not, this is all we have right now. I know we're moving, getting star reading and other things, but this is all we have, and this is what the state and the federal government are measuring our school by. But I will say the positive clearly is we're moving in the right direction. And so I appreciate all the teachers and the administrators that have worked collaboratively to get us moving in the right direction.
Thank you. Any other questions that I can?
Yes. Questions and comments? Hi, Dr. Daniel. Thank you so much. This
Yes,
is
ma'am.
very helpful. I do think because of the concerted effort that this board has had and working with administration to develop a strategic plan, which we will be discussing momentarily, we are all aligning for the same purpose. We know where we've been. We're looking at it very closely, dissecting it, and moving forward with intentionality. And that is, I think, over time, going to help us. I appreciate your explanation of the way our testing schedule works specific to history. That is something that I think in general, it is not obvious from when you just look at simple pass rates, it's not clear, it's not intuitive. There's more to it, and by design, I believe that a lot of the processes that we go through to measure performance with our children are intentionally confounding and confusing. But we doggedly are determined to move our children forward. And But still, constant explanation and keeping student achievement on the forefront of all of our minds every month, as it will be, and taking up more of our school board meeting time is the essence of why we're here, and we are all, I'm confident, aligned for that same purpose. I have a couple questions here.
Sure.
The VLA training is, for our teachers, I know it's been unbelievably intense. Is it ongoing, or is it completed at this point?
Now, I believe we finally got access to some online courses that our teachers will be progressing through. I believe it's 26 hours, 29 hours, Ms. Hunley?
It depends on your position category. There's quite a range.
So it's not that simple. So it's several hours, again, based on your position, but there will be ongoing training during the year through those kind of digital models. We have support coming in over the course of the year, kind of in-person kind of training modules. We had in-person training from our textbook publishers as well. So that's going to be an ongoing piece. And again, it's new. It's going to take us time working through it, making adjustments, then in year 2 and getting a little bit better in year 2, and then again in year 3.
And so for the efforts of all involved in that process, while the extra training may be helpful, it's still something more to
Yes,
do.
very much
I want
so.
to express our appreciation for the teachers and administrators who are supporting that effort. I know it's monumental, but such a must. We're on the right track with that too. We must do that. The CIP, I'm so excited about that. As you know, I've been talking about that for a long time, and just wanted to know what the timeline is for where we are with that. And I know it'll be a slow rollout of implementation.
So it comes with access to Mastery Connect, which is an online, which is a learning assessment, which is an assessment management system. So we've had some hiccups with regards to Canvas. Mastery Connect and Canvas kind of work together. So we've got to get our capacity to get everybody on board technology-wise with Mastery Connect. Once I'm confident that those gremlins, if you will, are out of the system, then I can sign the contract with Mastery Connect, and which then allows us to fully implement CIP. Those two things aren't connected in terms of the same owner, but in order to utilize the assessments through CIP, they are delivered through Mastery Connect. So we've got to get the Mastery Connect piece and make sure our capacity to do that is straight. So we just had some hiccups, but the turnaround time on that should be relatively quick. So accessing CIP is sending an email, and it's like we'll have access probably at the end of that day. The harder hurdle is, the higher mountain to climb, if you will, is getting the Mastery Connect integration piece straight.
Yep. If you were to guess, how long do you think that will take?
My goal is to get those pieces activated this month, so we would have access probably by the end of September, early October.
Okay, all right, fantastic. On the, regarding the all-in tutoring, forgive me, I've forgotten when that ends. Does that go through the 24-25 school year?
It does.
And then that's
And we
final?
may be able to extend it, I believe, for a third year if we haven't exhausted those funds. So we had a drop of money from the state to be able to compensate teachers for staying after school, and we could use other programs. So part of what we're doing is to partner with the YMCA to provide support for after school, so that students who stay after school for tutoring can then participate in terms of childcare coverage with the YMCA after school. So we'll compensate teachers, and then we'll provide access to students to then, after their tutoring ends at approximately 4 o'clock, would then be able to participate in the YMCA program. And then parents can pick up from school as their jobs end. Instead of, transportation has been the biggest hurdle for getting students to stay after school. So in partnering with the YMCA, we were able to provide some coverage for students after school to then remove that barrier, as much of that barrier as possible.
Are all the students who need the extra support able to receive it through the efforts of all-in tutoring and everything else? Is there anyone we're missing?
There are going to be families who we're going to have to work to have those students stay after school, or we'll have to be creative in terms of during the school day to provide enrichments and remediation for those students.
Okay. And just one final comment regarding your mention of decreasing absenteeism and that we keep an eye on that. And even though we may not mention that at every
It'll be in the
monthly
October report.
meeting.
It's just early. We don't have anybody on the radar with,
Right.
the third week of school,
Yeah.
thankfully.
I think it's
But it'll be back as part of the October SUPES report.
perfect. Thank you.
Getting high in the element where they gotta go to court or anything?
Again, we're pretty early in the school year on that, so it takes a while. You have to be absent for roughly 15 days to get on that radar. So we've been working with our school social worker, Taryn Thomas, has been working with court services to kind of tighten up that process to make sure that when we do get students, when we do have to take them to court, we have all of our documents in the way that the court system wants to see, so that the court system can be more effective in supporting us.
Any more questions? Right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Daniel. We're moving on to item 6, citizens' questions, comments, or requests. Comments not pertaining to personnel or student matters. Protocol for public comment period. Matthews County residents and school employees wishing to speak should sign up with their name and address on the sheet provided. Each individual will have 3 minutes to speak. Comment period will end after 90 minutes. All comments should be directed to the school board. Speakers shall not address matters involving students or personnel, as these topics may violate confidentiality and are not appropriate in a public forum. Public comment is the school board's opportunity to listen to the speaker. Since our purpose is to hear from you, the board will not engage in dialogue with the audience or whomever is at the podium. Matters requiring a response will be directed to the superintendent for research and response. The superintendent may report back on such matters at a subsequent business meeting session as appropriate. The school board carefully considers your comments when deciding on matters brought before us. We appreciate your attention and your input. We have Mr. John Mathieson is signed up to speak.
Good evening, John Mathieson, Gwynn, Virginia. Just wanted to give a quick update on our final Dine to Donate for the Gwynns Island Foundation. Will be on October 2nd, and it will be at Olivia's in Gloucester. That'll be a Wednesday, all day. We would love to see as many of you there as possible. And people are going, well, why are you kind of outsourcing to Gloucester? Well, I'm sure many or most understand Gary Ward's family's great dedication to education in schools here in Matthews, and he was more than delighted to host us. We also have sponsors that will be there, that will be helping us out. That will be Chesapeake Wealth Management, Bayport Financial, and Vashti's Jewelers have also agreed to sponsor the event, along with Gary, who will give a portion of the receipts that day to the foundation. All of the, well, no, not all. The vast majority of the proceeds for this will go to the students and schools of Matthews. There'll be a small portion also that we will be contributing to the Ward Family Scholarship here at Matthews High School, and that goes towards students who graduate, who want to go into education. So I would encourage everyone to come out Wednesday, October 2nd, and again, thanks to Gary Ward, and thank you for your time.
Mr. Mathieson, the timing for Olivia's, is that an all-day event?
It's an all-day. It's 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock. So it's a breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Any of them or all of them, please join us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to approach the podium?
Good evening, Dave Jones, 10344 Buckley Hall Road. First off, I'd like to applaud Mr. Robbins in his effort to push this vocational program forward. It's very commendable. I'm a product of a vocational system in Fairfax County, where we built one home a year and that's what funded the program. So I was looking at the funding, and as being a board member, I'm going to go back to our board. I'm really interested in this program. I'm going to go back to our board, and I'm going to take a hard look at this in the next coming budget. I don't think most people really realize the absence of skilled labor in our market today. I'm not even sure how many people I could hire right now at this moment. As a matter of fact, I can't grow because they're just simply not there, okay? So, and I think I understood you to say there's 43 kids in that program? 43 children in that program, and they are all 9th through 12th. And roughly think about how many kids you have in high school that are going to participate in the program. And oddly enough, the way we funded the program, or they funded it in Fairfax when I went through it, was we built one home a year, and they auctioned it off at the end of the year and got big money. People came out of the woodwork, so that might be something you want to consider. Speaking of budgets, we'll be going into our budget discussion in the coming months. And I don't have to tell you that we're not seeing any relaxation in our current market as far as inflation and the cost of living. And as I looked at the numbers that were up there and some of the deficiencies we have, some of this you have to equate to simple economics. People are not better off than they were 3.5 years ago. They're worse off. And this is a reflection in our children in the home, because things are tough on a lot of our citizens that are raising children, and financial struggles. So with that, if you go back and you look at history, you'll see that when our economy is good, people's spirits are up, okay? The families do much better, and the children do better. And if you look at the numbers, you saw there in 20 or 21, 22, that was right after we were still in a pretty decent economic period as a carryover. No matter how anybody wants to paint this, you must admit that we were in much better shape than we are now 3.5 years ago. So that's a myth that nobody can run on the record today and say that you're better off, not unless you're so well off that it doesn't impact you. As I looked at the tiny home up there and I looked at the cost of the thing, that goes back to the cost of living. Our students are going to learn how to build something that will translate over into a larger scale later on for them, to where they can build their own home. What a savings to them in the long run. The other thing is...
Mr. Jones, your time is up.
But I just want to say one more thing. Right now, that's all they can afford. So we need to be thinking about that.
Thank you for your comments.
Richard Hicks, North Virginia. I see we are still wasting, that's wasting, taxpayer money on a building, housing, desks, chairs, seats, blackboards, and all that other stuff that goes with it, etc., for 400 students. Why are we wasting that money? When are you going to do something about it? Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to approach?
I hope I can talk. I'm Randy Applegate. I'm not from Matthews, but I live in Gloucester, Virginia. But I do want to commend our CTE programs. Middle school, Miss Michelle Williams, Mr. Jason Williams, and our high school staff. Wes has done a phenomenal job since he got there in the middle of last year. And he's really taken it and run with it and has some great ideas. Our whole department, pound for pound, if you will, is probably the best in the state. I would say our quality of what we have is probably among the best in the state for the people that we have. It's shrunk a little bit, but if you recall a MASH episode with, what's his name, Winchester said, I do one thing, I do it well, and I move on. That's what we're doing right now. We've got a great program. Thanks to guys like this, I just want to say thank you and let you know it's out there.
Thank you, Mr. Applegate. Anyone else who'd like to approach?
Good evening, Amy Bohannon Stewart. I'll make sure Sharon gets my address. I live here in Matthews. I wasn't planning on speaking tonight, but I liked some things that I heard. I was glad to hear a little bit about Constitution Day, and I hope to hear more about that at the next meeting. It's really important that we celebrate that and teach our children how to appreciate the Constitution and value it. So I was pleasantly surprised to see that Matthews is planning on being involved in the CIP program next year. I now work in New Kent, and they use that. And I was pleasantly surprised to learn that I was not going to have to deal with the disruptive fall and winter SOL testing in New Kent. I never dreamed that was going to be possible. But one of the principals, I was questioning him about, like, why, how do we get out of that? He's like, well, it said we got a waiver, and it had to do something with their involvement in the CIP. Maybe you have to meet a minimum score the prior year. I don't know. But it's my hope that if Matthews County Public Schools gets involved with the CIP, then maybe eventually they can get a waiver for that too. But I would think the teachers would like it. There's some other resources for teachers besides the Mastery Connect tests and stuff. But anyway, I'm glad to hear we're involved in that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bohannon Stewart. Is there anyone else?
To all our students, but I do agree with Bobby. We're doing too little, and I hope it isn't too late. I personally feel like every student in this school system should have had a pocket constitution. Yes, I sent one to all my grandchildren. I do every year in case they lose the one before. But even if you get high test scores, get really high test scores. If you lose your freedom, they mean nothing. They mean absolutely nothing. I am appalled at the history scores. I grew up in inner city Buffalo. I didn't think history was a big deal, but the government ruled us. I do not want that to happen to our population now. Our students need to know about the Constitution, and we're vying on losing our freedom right now as I speak. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Fry. Is there anyone else who would like to approach Dr. Greed?
Hi, just another shout out to, I guess now the tiny house guy, Mr. Robbins. Hopefully that doesn't stick, but I guess it's not so bad. And just to, when we met about this and he presented this awesome idea, this was his brainchild. He was the one that brought this to Matthews and said, look, this would be a great way to fund our carpenter program, be great for the students. We looked at space, and I just wanted to make sure that the board was aware. So when we looked at space, our shop is very well equipped, largely due to what he has done, and he's done an amazing job of kind of revamping the carpentry. We got a great grant. Mr. Applegate was instrumental in giving us an enormous grant the previous year. But if you hear that he's ventured on to the auto mechanics room, there was between the dead rise and the gazebos and the Adirondack chairs, the assembly, he's got a lot going on in this carpentry room. There is a space, kind of like the corner of the auto shop, where we'll need to use to assemble these tiny homes. That was part of the when we were like coordinating and how this was going to happen. So in case you get any questions or hear that we've overtaken the auto shop, there's a corner of the auto shop that will be the assembly area, which we've kind of worked out all the issues. And again, it's his brainchild, and he's really worked out a lot of the details to make this happen. So we just appreciate his efforts. Thanks.
Thanks, Dr. Grieve. Is there anyone else who'd like to approach?
Michelle Williams, 3171 East River Road, North Virginia. I just wanted to say, one, thank you to the board and to Mr. Applegate and to Ms. Simpson. The end of June last year, we discussed at the last board meeting that my over 25-year-old refrigerator in the FCS room had died. And so you guys worked and worked and worked. That refrigerator was delivered last Monday. It is beautiful. It fits perfectly in the space. We went with a counter depth refrigerator, so it gave me back 4 inches of floor space as well, which makes it a little more manageable in there since I'm gonna have high school students in there. But I just wanted to say thank you to the board. I also wanted to give a shout out. I know that there's been some behind the scenes work going on between Matthews County Public Schools and Matthews County with our maintenance people and the work that's being done. I have to commend the gentlemen that have been in our building. The bathroom on the front hall of the school is just spectacular. They have done a great job, and I would like to thank the board for partnering with Matthews to get some more hands to put that work in. It looks great. Thank you for caring for this building. Ms. Simpson is working. She wants to try to have a better plan on how we work things. It's in the works. We're going to figure out how to make that best use of that floor space as possible. For the time being, the existing washer and dryer are still in place. We were going to try to give that to Dr. Hogg at the high school for the special education department, but his room is not equipped with the plumbing and the drains and all of that stuff to put that yet. So again, it's a maintenance issue, it's a building issue, but I know that Ms. Simpson has that on the radar, and there are some other things that she's working on. And I just wanted to say thank you guys for the work that you do to help us do what we do.
Is there anyone else who would like to approach? No? All right, thank you for everybody's comments tonight. We'll move on to item 6.2, school board member comments. Ms. Diggs.
I'd like to make about 3 comments here. And first one, Mr. Matheson, you encourage me very much as a citizen of Matthews County and a school board member in doing, you and your wife, in doing all that you have done and continue to do for the students of Matthews County. Thank you so much. And Mr. Applegate, I want to thank you for your positive comments tonight. And I used to watch MASH also. And people ask me sometimes about how is it going with the board and the schools and so forth. And I say I am positive, and we are attacking things one at a time. And it's slow, but it's progress in the right direction. And hats off to all the teachers and staff, and you support people here that make it happen. We thank you. And lastly, but certainly not least, welcome to you, and thank you for all you're doing for the 43 students, and I'm sure that number will increase from what you have tackled, and I appreciate it very, very much. Thank you.
I am going to probably repeat some things that my colleague has just said, but Mr. Applegate, thank you for letting us know that, as you said, pound for pound, we do as well as any other division in our CTE community area. That's helpful to know, because sometimes I have no idea what other school divisions are doing. And sometimes I assume large school divisions, I assume wrongly, have more resources and therefore have better programs. So I really appreciate that you have pointed that out to us. Thank you. I also want to comment on Constitution Day today. This is a new piece that we're adding to our school division, and I think it's so incredibly important. As we first talked about that, I'm thinking, why don't we spend as much attention to Constitution Day as we do the 4th of July? And I think that's a missed opportunity. 4th of July certainly is important, but it's equally, if not more important, because the Constitution is something we live with day in and day out. So thank you to all of those who had their hands on this to start us kind of raising this up annually. Thank you.
Any other comments? All right. Moving on to item 7, Superintendent's Informational Reports from Dr. Daniel. 7.1, School Opening and Enrollment Information.
Okay, so I think, again, part of the school highlights that we had a really good opening this year. Part of, from a superintendent's perspective, you sort of look to see, did the buses roll on time? Did the kids get fed? Were the schedules did they work out pretty well? And by all those indicators, we had a smooth opening. So I applaud the work of our principals and staff, making sure that all the thousands of details were lined up for students to have a successful first day. First impressions count an awful lot. So I think we were able to create a really good first impression this year for our families and our students. Enrollment, as of today, is 770 students. So we budgeted, so as a reminder, we budgeted last year on 785. So we're about 15 students down from what we budgeted. Last year we finished around 785, 780, somewhere around in that number. So while being 10 students short is not exciting, it is much better than last year when we were about 65 to 70 students short of what was budgeted. So again, optimism is the rule of the day. Looking at kind of long-term in terms of enrollment, our high school grade levels, well, let me back that up. So grades 9 through 12, each of one of those cohorts or each one of those grade levels is about 70 students. Grades 6 through 8, each grade level is about 60 students. That's the same for grades 3 through 5. But then in our primary grades, K through 2, we're about 45 to 50 students. So what it looks like is that we graduated more students last year than what we brought in kindergarten, in terms of that, a little bit of that cliff. So our homeschool numbers are actually a little bit lower this year than where we ended last year. So last year we ended with about 145 students in homeschool. This year we're at 135 students. Again, kind of reflecting on the homeschool survey results that required a lot of interpretation just based on a low response rate. But I don't know that we're going to see if homeschool is working, then families aren't going to be as likely to send their students back to the public day setting. So I think our job is going to be in the future making sure that we have a quality product that students are achieving, that we have fantastic programs in our schools that attract students to stay in our school system. Rather than trying to then recruit students to come back. Not that I'm against or don't want anybody coming back from private school or coming back from homeschool, but I think our strategy needs to be kind of what Mr. Applegate was talking about in terms of being really good at what we do. And so part of the pieces that we're putting in place is to be really good at the things that we're doing and aligning up interventions and curriculum with student needs and monitoring data and things along those lines. So that's a little bit about enrollment. I would also I'll venture off task for a second. So I think our new bathroom at Thomas Hunter opens up tomorrow to great excitement. Part of that is that construction was part of the capital improvements plan from the county. So that money was allocated from the county to address some of the bathroom needs. So appreciative to the county for dedicating those funds to some of our facility upgrades. Work will begin in the coming weeks on the boys' bathroom. So that project will begin shortly, and so we'll have two just upgraded, functional bathrooms for our students here at Thomas Hunter to use. Moving on to, are there any questions about enrollment before I move on to 7.2? Yes, ma'am.
So you said the home school was a little bit lower. Are those kids, is it the assumption that those kids are back here, or did they at least leave the county?
I think it's a mix. So when we looked at exiting with like withdrawals and then enrollment, so we saw, I'm gonna have to go. I'm kind of pulling the numbers out of the from deep in memory, but I believe we had 16 former homeschool students re-enroll this year, but we also had 10 students who were enrolled in Matthews County Public Schools then elect to go homeschool this year. So there's a little bit of a push on that. We've had some homeschool students who have graduated, so they're no longer part of those homeschool roles.
I hadn't thought about that.
And so I looked at is there a trend for the age of students in homeschool? And it's pretty evenly dispersed across the grade levels. I mean, it's about the same number per grade level, K through 5, so it's not a cliff at, not wanting to go to the high school or the middle school, but it's kind of pretty proportioned across grade levels, K-12. What's hard to capture is private school enrollment, and so I can look at a year to determine, did we have withdrawals to private schools? And I think we only had one, maybe two students who withdrew to a private school that I could see. So that didn't seem to be a big determining factor. I think it looks to be a lot of young families coming into Matthews and just kind of demographics within the community.
Good. And my second question is, tuition-paying students, is that, you don't have to give me numbers, but do we have the numbers, the number of students that come in, just generally speaking, could they make up for the lesser amount of students enrolled? That we don't have a number of money we're going to give from the state.
Yeah, we don't have many new tuition-paying students this year to kind of bridge that difference.
Yes.
To be honest, we have a handful of non-resident students who pay tuition. That's not a large percentage of our student population.
Okay.
Other divisions, it's a higher percentage, but it's not so much here.
Okay, thank you.
A little bit so moving on to 7.2, our strategic plan update. So as a reminder, we spent about 2.5 days this summer working on strategic plan. We've had ongoing meetings. We've had weekly meetings to review drafts and make tweaks on the strategic plan, kind of aligning goals with an eye towards the school-based improvement plans, division improvement plans. We're working on looking at data. So the goal is to have a draft available within the next 2 weeks to have for the board to look at, kind of sign off on, and then for public comment, public feedback. There will also be a time frame for all of our faculty and staff to provide input on that strategic goal and the plans and the action steps to meet those goals. So I'm positive about the product at the end. The conversation has been as important as what the final document, I think, will be. One of the things that was highlighted in terms of our process was looking at the curriculum support materials and aligning curriculum. So as looking at that information and getting feedback from the teachers who participated in that helps us better understand some of the student achievement gaps that we're not providing the right supports or enough supports to our teachers to make sure that they have everything that they need to give our kids everything that they need to perform on that test. So the process is already paying dividends. And so when we get the document out there and get some more conversations started, I think the end result is going to be a big overall positive for the board, but also for the division and the families within our school system. 7.3, what I am submitting to the board to review is a civility policy. Unfortunately, while we've had a very smooth opening this year, we have had a couple instances, both at the end of last year and kind of to start this year, where we've had some difficult, I guess, meetings and interactions where some of our staff members have had to bear the brunt of some inappropriate language and actions on the part of some of our families. So what has been requested of me in the past to look at, and it just kind of came up again recently, was to look at establishing a civility policy to establish what our expectations are for the board in terms of how our staff is going to interact with citizens and community and parents, but also expectations for how our staff are to be treated in some of these meetings, and when it's okay for our staff members to call an end to an uncivil, an inappropriate, borderline abusive interaction. So a neighboring school division has a very similar policy in place. So what I'm asking the board to do is to take a look, to review this policy to see if it makes sense for our school division, for our teachers. The policy is written in such a way that I would describe it as a two-way policy. So we're holding our staff to a civility expectation as well as the community that they are working with. Unfortunately, it's an unfortunate part of the job right now that some meetings descend, but our staff members shouldn't have to be subjected to abusive interactions. So it's up for you all to review. I would ask that we revisit this next month and for a vote. Moving on to 7.4, we have some financial reports. If there are any questions about any of the financial reports, I will answer as best I can, or I will turn to my crack research team to my left to fill in some of the blanks.
Any comments from the board? Any questions? Thank you, Dr. Daniel.
You're welcome.
Moving on to item 8.1, just would like everyone in the community to know that we will be having a joint work session with the Board of Supervisors on Tuesday, October 8th at 6 p.m. That will be in this space. That will be the very beginning of our budget discussions. Item 8.2, we will have a school board work session on Tuesday, October 22nd, which is an 8 to 3 event at the Chesapeake Bank Community Room. Item 8.3, the school board will be having a town hall on Thursday, October 24th at 6 p.m. in this space, the J. Murray Brooks Auditorium at Thomas Hunter Middle School. And we welcome everyone in the community to participate in that. Item 8.4 is our joint school legislative tour on Thursday, November 14th, beginning at 9 a.m. at the middle school. Item 8.5.
I got a question on that.
Yes, Mr. Dobson.
Is there going to be any other parties attending that are not mentioned?
The focus for the November 14th is for legislators. On our budget calendar, that was part of the consent agenda, we have scheduled a community tour for February, I believe it's February 6th. So
Okay,
if
but
there's
it's not
civic,
on November.
It's not, the November is specifically for legislators to kind of guide
And
with
nobody else.
legislative priorities. It is legislative body.
All right.
But we have put in place in February community organizations who want to we'll send out a kind of a sign-up sheet for organizations to have representatives, and we'll schedule a tour in February to see the facilities and walk through all of our schools to see what things are happening here.
And just to be clear, the invitees for the November 14th tour are, of course, the school board members, and then the Board of Supervisors and the county administrator.
Would you repeat that again?
As stated on the, repeating that information again, there's an attachment
Right.
as an invitation for the legislative
Right.
tour for the Board of Supervisors and the county administrator.
In addition to Congressman Whitman.
In addition to the
Okay,
legislators,
that's
yes,
what could be.
yes,
Thank
in
you.
addition to the legislators, yes. Item 8.5, we have our ongoing listings of school board conferences and webinars. Please be sure to take a look at all of that and your expectations of course completions. Item 8.6, the board and committee reports by school board members and superintendent. We have everybody slated for participating in the Board of Supervisors meetings. Mr. Morgan will be there this week.
Yes.
Moving on to item 9, we have one action item tonight. That's 9.1, approval of request for use of school bus and driver. This is for the Matthews High School reunion transportation request. May I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the request for the use of a school bus and driver as listed.
Do we have a second?
I second that.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I do have a question. Actually, my husband raised it. When we allow school buses to be used, do we just throw in the gas as a contribution to our community? I know there's a fee, and I believe they pay for the driver and the time the driver has, but the question was about the gas.
Fuel costs are calculated by Mr. Royals, and that's part of the billing process.
Okay,
Historically, just to I asked Ms. Morgan to do a little research in terms of who do we normally work with in terms of supplying buses or allowing access to our buses. And historically, that has been an organization affiliated with the county in some way, shape, or form, so market days and various pieces along those lines.
okay. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Moving to item 10, citizens' comments on items discussed during the meeting. Do we have anybody who would like to approach the podium? Please approach.
You need my information again? Or do you have it? Dave Jones, 10334 Buckley Hall Road. Not too surprised to hear about the enrollment numbers. As you ride down Route 14 or you're going to Gloucester and you get up near Ware, look over at Ware Academy. They're expanding. I can't sit here and hold you responsible for that. We have a declining population of children in our community. I'm not really sure what to do about that. I have some suggestions I'll bring out at my own board meeting. But people are continuing to seek alternatives, and there's reasons behind that. A lot of it's faith-based. Right now, I'd have to tell you that if I was raising a child, they'd be homeschooled or in another facility because of the Board of Education, and because they go directly against some of my principles. One fortunate thing is, as I see this program to build this tiny house. The nice part about it is when you get hands-on like that, there's nothing political. And as we strengthen these vocational, there may be the one attraction that does bring some of our kids back to build a strong vocational. And I'm gonna commit to these gentlemen to support them and unwavering support for that. I think it's essential that we all look at this as being the future. Punching a keyboard anymore is not sufficient enough. We've lost a whole generation of skilled people, and we got to get them back. So I want you to think about that, especially on October 8th. And I do have a request as a board member. On October 8th, I'd like to get the current enrollment numbers as of that date, and any disenrollment numbers that you'd have at that time. And I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Is there anyone else who'd like to approach? All right, moving on to item 11.
I'd like to make an address
Yes, Mr. Dobson.
to what Mr. Jones just said. We need to push for apprentice school. And there's no reason we can't get a couple of the schools around here to go together, pull our resources, and do it. It was done in Dinwiddie, and there's no reason it can't be done here. If we could even get an automotive shop teacher here, we could do some trading with a couple of the other schools to get some things that we don't have with them. Like Gloucester has several CTE classes we don't have, and I believe Middlesex has a couple. If we allow some of their people to come in, we can ship some of our people out. I mean, there's all different ways you can do this, but it needs to be looked at, it needs to be talked about, and I think it can be done. So I just thought I'd throw that in to you.
Well, as we continue on with number 11, school board member reports, Mr. Dobson, do you have any additional comments above and beyond that this evening?
No, I do not. I have one, but that's later on.
Right, are there any other members who would wish to take some time? Mr. Morgan?
Yes, just quickly, as we approach budget season, and we already know we have our first joint work session here coming up in just, a couple weeks or so, I'd like for us to be mindful of not just teachers' salaries, but all staff. And I know last year, about January, February, when we had a joint work session with the board of supervisors, a very productive work session, I may add, it was discussed that maybe we can, year over year, build in an increase in salary for our staff, not only teachers, but entire staff. I know no one's looked at numbers yet. I understand that. It's a little bit early. But I would like for us to keep that in mind, please, that when we do have our work sessions and we begin talking budget and money and so forth, that we keep our staff in mind, and hopefully we can have a year-over-year increase, barring any catastrophes, where we're not back here every single year saying, okay, we didn't get a raise last year, what are we going to get this year? And then we end up playing catch-up. So just keep that in mind, please, to look at a year-over-year increase and see what kind of conclusion we can come to as the two boards meet. Thank you.
I agree, Mr. Morgan, and I think as we focused on the climate in our schools and teacher retention being one of the focal points that we discussed during our strategic plan work sessions, that dovetails into that, and creating an environment of stability for our teachers and staff, so we have some measure of predictability, so we're not left in the lurch trying to make up for big loss, having big variances in swaths of times of increase and feast famine approach to it. I don't think that is in anyone's best interest.
Right. I think even the federal government acknowledges that they call in 3.2% the cost of living increase. I think all of us, especially if we've been to the grocery store, know it's more than 3.2%. But regardless of what the actual number is, we just need to keep in mind that school division employees bear the same burdens as people that have other jobs. So let's try to look out for them best we can.
To that point, I noticed that when one of the staff were considering hiring in a closed session, I saw the salary, and I was like, it is not a living wage. It is not a living wage. And the role of these individuals it's critical, whether you're a teacher, that's certainly important, administrator, that's certainly important, but our teacher assistants and our bus drivers, when you put your child on the bus for the first time, you realize how critical a job they have. And it comes home to you. So again, to your point, Mr. Morgan, thank you for raising that, and Dr. Gibbs, thank you for bringing it up. But I think that we need to certainly look at trying to increase that.
Any other comments from members? If there's none, we will proceed to closed meeting. May I have a motion and a reading of the recommended action?
I make a motion to enter into closed meeting in accordance with the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, Section 2.2-3711, Prin A, Prin 1, discussion or consideration of personnel matters, support staff appointment, support staff resignation, fall sports coaching staff appointment, fall and winter volunteer coaching staff appointments, and spring sports baseball field maintenance appointment. And Section 2.2-3711, Prin A, Prin 2, discussion or consideration of admission or disciplinary matters concerning students.
May I have a second?
I second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are now in closed session.